Welcome back to Charming Data, everybody, where you learn all about data visualization in Python. So this is the third video of the Dash data table, which is a great tool to teach us how to create interactive spreadsheet-driven applications in Python. So a couple of weeks ago, we looked into the left here, we looked into the data table width. We also did the drop down inside the data table. Today, we're going to focus on the styling and the data table height. And don't forget to subscribe below and turn on your notifications because next week you'll receive another video that I'm going to create on the sorting and the editing of the data table. All right, so we're going to actually use the documentation that Dash has put together because it's great documentation. I'm just going to go over it line by line so you learn all about how to create the different colors, how to align the text in the different columns, how to create a list kind of look to your data table so it doesn't have the vertical grids, how you can play around with the header formatting and the boldness color of the text, how you can change, you see how the strip rows here, there's different colors, multiple headers, and different colors to the cells. Also into the height, we're going to focus on the vertical scroll. So you can control the vertical scroll inside a data table, control the pagination, you call that in Dash data table, where you can decide how many rows you want per each page. So this is a great tool to have when you have spreadsheet-based applications, and when you want your users to play around with data tables or even edit your data tables. Okay, so don't forget to open these links below the video because we're going to use them as we go along, and also open the code that I put in there under the video so we can work on this together. All right, so let's go to the top here. Perfect. So let's go into the styling.py code first. These are the libraries we're going to use. I'm using this version of Dash, but you can probably use similar versions. And this is the fake data that Dash Plotly has given us. So I just copy pasted here. Also, the code is from there. I'm just going to go over it and explain more in my words how I understood it so it's helpful for you. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is obviously the layout and create the data table, call it, and then you want to create the data and the columns. We're going to use the df that from the data frame that we brought in here, the fake data frame. So now we have our data, we have our columns, we have our data table, and now we're going to start styling it. So the first thing we're going to do with style is column alignment. So we're going to align all the cells of the data table to the left. Style cell, you'll see here and here, includes or refers to the whole data table. So it refers to the header, and it refers to the body of the table. So style cell refers to all the cells in the table. So if we do this and we save and we run it, you'll see that all the text should be aligned to the left. You see, all the text here is to the left. I'm actually going to make this smaller so we can do this at the same time. All right, so all the text is aligned here to the, oh, before I forget, this parentheses is closed all the way down here at the bottom. So make sure that this one is always open here and not hashtagged out. All right, that way we can go one by one in different examples. All right, so we align everything to the left. Now let's say we don't want to align everything to the left. We want to have some of them, only these columns aligned to the left, and the rest will be by default aligned to the right. So what do you do? To do that, you want to say you're going to use style cell conditional, and this is a parameter inside the Dash data table. If you want to see other parameters, just make sure to go to here, references. All these references is part of the documentation inside the Dash data table. Is the second tab, references, and it'll give you all the references, right? So we look, for example, to we're looking at style cell conditional, and you can see here all the different, how to create it, the if and the dictionary, how it looks like. So I'm going to show you how that occurs. So you don't have to read everything, although I would recommend you read it afterwards. So what we want to do is we want to say that if the column ID is C, which is here for C in date region, so if the column ID is date or region, you want to align the text to the left. And the rest, you don't do anything with it, it's just going to be by default. And by default, all the text is aligned to the right. So if we do this and we actually save it and run it, only date and region should have their text, header, and data rows aligned to the left. The rest would be aligned to the right. So you see here, date and region aligned to the left, London everything, and here they're aligned to the right. And this is typically how you want to have it. In a nice spreadsheet, you usually want to format the cells in a way that text or strings are aligned to the left and numbers are aligned to the right. Don't know why, but that's how society thinks is best. The most important thing you want to know, so you can do this on your own in the future, is style cell conditional is built from a list of conditional dictionaries. So every condition is inside one dictionary, or every dictionary is one condition. So here we have one dictionary, and inside of it we have a for loop of date and region, and we're going to say if is the key, and the value is going to be another dictionary, and then you have another key and value of how you want to format the text inside that cell, or the numbers. All right, so let's hashtag this out. The next thing we're going to look into is table as list. So how do we create a table as list so it looks better and it doesn't look like a spreadsheet? And what this does, it takes out the vertical grid lines. So to take out the vertical grid lines, we just did that. You see there's no vertical grid lines. Nothing here, and nothing here. And this is simple. You just have to do style as list view true. All right. Now let's say we want that same style, but at the same time, we want to also style the header. So we're going to say take out the vertical grids, but also pad everything, all the cells. Remember, cell, if you remember something from this tutorial, remember that style cell or style cell conditional refers to the whole data table, header and data. Style header refers only to the header, and style data, which you'll see below, only refers to the data rows. All right. So style cell padding 5 pixels is going to be for all the cells, and in the header we want the header to be the color background will be white and the text will be bold and black. So let's see. We have the border is 1 pixel solid black. We have the font weight is bold and black, and the background is white. Okay, and then you see the padding is 5 pixels, so you see there a little bit, there is space. Look at my mouse here, space between each text within inside the cell because we put 5 pixels. Okay, so now let's look at strip rows where we can recreate. What are we doing here? Here we're going to style the header only, so we're going to put a background color for the header, and we're going to say the font is going to be bold. And the data rows, this only refers to the rows, it doesn't refer to the header as well. We're going to say every row index that's odd, so every second row index, well, I shouldn't say second. Rows have indexes, there might be different numbers, but if you have numbers from 0 to 100, it would only be the odd numbers that are going to be different color, and this is going to be their background. All right, so if we save this and run it, you will see, let's see on this, the strip data table. You see the different colors here and how the header has a darker gray. All right. So the next thing, we're going to play around with the theme of the cells. Here we're going to say that we want the header to have this background color, and the cell we want to have this background color. So in this case, the cell, it includes all the data table. However, since we put the header as well, and the header is actually on top of the cell, this is gonna supersede. This is gonna take place instead of this. So you'll see background for the style for the header. I'll let it save. This is dark black, and the background for the cells are gonna be not as more gray, not as black. So they were both implemented, but this is implemented above this. Okay, and you'll see at the very bottom why this is the case. All right, let's close this. Almost done with coloring. Highlighting certain rows. So maybe I don't want to highlight every row, but I only want to highlight the second one or the third one. So I will use data conditional because data refers to the rows and not the whole table. And I say, and again here, it's a list of dictionaries. And the first dictionary, well, the only dictionary is going to have an if statement. The row index equals 4. Then the background is going to be this color and the text is going to be that color, and so on and so on. You can change the coloring however you want, but we know row index 4, so let's count this. 1, 2, 3, sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the fourth one. You'll see it's green, and the text is white, just as we put here. The color is white. This is kind of cool. I really like how you can play around with the text. Dash data table has come a long way. It was very hard to do a lot of this at the beginning a year or two ago, but it has definitely evolved, and it's very easy to use. And it gives you a comprehensive set of tools that you can play around with, especially with the styling. Okay, so now we're going to highlight certain columns. Here we did certain rows, and we use row index. Now we're going to highlight certain columns. So we're going to say if, again, it's a list of dictionaries, and in the first and only dictionary, we're going to say if is the key, and the value is going to be another dictionary. Column ID equals temperature, we're going to change the background and the color. So if we do that, you'll see temperature, column, and all this change. Now only these are green and not the header because we use data conditional, and data refers only to the rows. Okay, let's close this. Now we're going to highlight certain cells, so we're also going to use data because we don't want a header. And to highlight certain cells, we're going to do the same thing. It's a list of dictionaries. For every dictionary is going to be a condition. So in this dictionary, we're going to say if the column ID equals region. If the column ID is region, and within the region, the cell equals Montreal, EQ is equals in query language. If it equals Montreal, this is what we're going to do with the background. The color is going to be, of the text is going to be white. Second dictionary, if the column ID is going to be humidity, and inside humidity, if the cell equals 20, then this is going to be the background. All right, let's see, and so on and so on. We're also doing with temperature. So let's see how this looks like. You see, temperature, humidity, and region, it equals to Montreal, equals to 20, and this temperature is above 3.9, so it is also green because this is the background color. Okay. Now let's look into the adding borders. You can also add borders. I'm adding it to the data, and I'm adding it to the data rows and to the header. One of them is going to be red, the other one is going to be black. And you'll see here once it loads, it's red and black. Cool. Now we're going to do multiple headers. To do multiple headers, which is the last thing we're going to do in styling, oops, we actually did too much. It's one before last. What you're going to do is you're going to write the columns in a different way. Column, as you can probably recall from above, is this. This is how you write the code inside column. It's a dictionary of, it's a list of dictionaries, and each dictionary has an ID and a name with key and value. In this case, let's actually hashtag this out. You need to hashtag this out because we're going to use new ones below. In this case, the column is also a list of dictionaries, but every dictionary has an ID, which is a key and value. So up until here, it's all the same, but the name is going to be the key, and the value is not going to be only one word. It's going to be a list, and that is how you create the multiple headers. Because inside the value of the name, you're gonna create a list of strings, and in this case, this one is empty string and this one is year. This one is city and this one is Montreal. So the first item in each list is the top header, and the second item is the second header. All right, and this is just fake data that we created just for this. And we're going to merge the header so it's true, so everything is merged together. And now you'll see that city is one, it's merged, and all of these are different headers that we put, and climate is one, and all of these are different climates. If we put merge false, then we will just have city here, city here, city here, city here, and climate and climate. It will still be two headers, but it'll just be it won't be merged. So that's how you create multiple headers. And you can also edit you can also style editable columns. Am I even saying that right? Yeah, editable columns. Up until now, we saw how to style columns in general, but now we're going to style specifically those columns that can be edited. So here I'm saying I want the user to be able to edit column that is equal humidity, right? So by saying that, we go into here, we see humidity. I can actually go in there and I can edit. I can put 100. On the bottom one, I can put 200, and so on and so on, 222. Okay. If you refresh it, it's all going to refresh, but you're actually giving the user an opportunity to edit the table and save it if they want. Not now, but later on we'll show a video on how to do that. So, but this is the default color and background in Dash Data Table. But we don't want everything to look the same. We want those that are not editable to be black background and white text. So that we do this way. We say style the data. If the column is editable equals false, meaning it's not humidity, then this is the coloring we're going to give it. And we're also going to say that if in the header, if the header is not, the column is editable as false, we're also going to give it this color. Because why? Because data only refers to the rows, so we pretty much have to repeat the same thing for the style header conditional. All right. So this is how we get this. Okay, so let's hashtag this out. And let's look into the styles priority. This I'm just going to leave as text. It's part of the documentation as well. This is what I talked briefly above, where if you have multiple style properties, this is the list of which one takes precedence. So the style data conditional is always going to take precedence over filter conditional, over header conditional, if you have three of them in the same code that contradict each other. This one, these are the list of how they will take precedence. All right, read a little bit more about it because they have some more interesting information here that could be helpful, but it's good to remember, or just refer back to the documentation here under styling, and you can read a little bit more about it. All right, so we did the styling. Now we're going to look into the height. The height is a bit more intuitive, I would say, and it teaches you how to create vertical scrolls and how to control the height of your data table. So let's look into this. Go into height. Okay, you want to do the same thing, just import the same libraries. I created this fake data frame. It's different than the other one, so just create it. I didn't create this, sorry. I took it from the documentation as well as the code. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on page action and style table. All right. So let's see here. Let's actually close this code and run the height code. So we need to do Python height. Perfect. That should run in a sec. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is this. So let it load. Okay. Here we added a vertical scroll among to see all the rows. And how did we do that? What we did here is we just said the page action is none. This means that it renders all the data at once. So if you don't have too many rows, it's okay to do this. Just put all of your data into the browser all at once. And I'm going to tell the app to style a table in a way that the height of the table is only 300 pixels And if it's anything more, if there's more rows than 300 pixels, then the overflow is going to be auto. This is actually allowing it to scroll. Okay, so because I have 18 rows in this data frame, and 18 rows are equal to about 500 or 600 pixels, I'm going to have to, this is going to end up using the overflow because I'm only limiting to 300 pixels. So it's going to start overflowing. Important to note that if you have more than 1,000 rows, your browser will slow down. So if your spreadsheet has like 2,000 or 5,000 rows under 10,000, use pagination as the examples below that we're going to see below. Remember, this is without pagination. Now let's look into how do we do it with pagination, the vertical scroll, in case we have more than 1,000 rows. So this is what you want to do. You want to do the same thing. You use same kind of style you can do for the vertical scroll. You can set it at 200. You can set it at 300. Doesn't matter. That's just the height of your table. But what you want to do is page action native, so all the data is passed to the table up front. But you want to set it so there's only 10 rows per page. So if there's more than 10 rows, you're going to have another page and another page. We have 18 rows, so we'll probably end up with 2 pages. I just saved it. See, 10 rows here and the rest here. And because we limited to 200 pixels, the whole data frame from top to bottom 200 pixels, it created a vertical scroll for us. It's kind of cool. You can create these scroll and play around with your data. All right, so this is pagination. This is very important. This helps the browser not slow down if you have more than 1,000 rows because it doesn't upload everything. It only uploads the first page, and if the user goes to the second page, it'll upload the second page, and then the third one and the fourth one. So anything above 1,000 rows, try to use pagination. You don't have to limit to 10. You can limit to, I don't know, 20 rows or 30 rows per page, but just limit it so it creates a faster browser experience. Okay, so now we're going to do front-end pagination, which is the same as we did above, but without the vertical scroll. So why, oops, let me unhashtag this. Okay, let me run this again. Okay, so this doesn't have any vertical scroll because we didn't style the table, and we just said that we're going to have a page size. So each page is going to have 10 rows. If it has more, we're going to have more and more pages. For 100 rows, obviously you will have 10 different pages because each page has 10 rows. So as you can see, there's no vertical scroll here. Okay. So let's call this, hashtag this out. Important to make note, if you have more than 10,000 rows, you should do pagination with the back end. This is front end pagination, the page size. You can do it with back end to lower the network cost and the memory so it doesn't slow down. Because if you do this with like 15,000 or 20,000 rows, your browser will still be very slow and your user experience will not be that good. So just go to this website or this web page link that Dash offers us, and it's pretty user-friendly. Just learn how to do the back-end pagination so that the experience is faster. Okay, now we're going to do vertical scroll with fixed headers. So we're going to look how to fix the header. All you have to do is fixed rows, header true, and style the table. Since we're going to style the table to 400, we have many more rows than 400 pixels would allow us to put in. It's going to create automatically a vertical scroll. You see, there's a header that doesn't move, it's stuck, and then a vertical scroll goes up and down. Again, this is because we have many rows. If we only had 5 rows for this data table, then it wouldn't create a vertical scroll because 5 rows do fit into 500 pixels. Every row takes about 30 pixels. So just calculate it. If you have 10 rows, you would have about, including the header, you would have about 330 pixels tall. So anything above that would create more rows. All right, let's close that. Now, we're going to look just into the width of the header because sometimes, sorry, on hashtag this because we're using data and column again. Don't forget to go all the way up and hashtag these out, data and column. Okay. What happens here? This, when you have headers where, well, let me actually just show you. I'm going to save this and run this. This is fake data, fake columns, and the header, we're going to fix it as true. So let me get this smaller. Okay, so you see how it's supposed to say column 1, 2, and all the way to 15, but it's truncated and you can only see this. And that's because the browser does that automatically. If we just put fixed rows, header true, and the columns are bigger, the size of the column cell, the text is bigger than the text inside the rows. If these rows were big, it wouldn't be a problem. All the text would fit. But because the text inside these rows is a lot smaller than the text inside the header, that headers get truncated. So to avoid that, just hashtag this out. You want to use fixed rows, header true, and you want to use style cell. So just define the width of the style cell, and it should avoid truncating the header. So now look at it, and you'll see column 1, column 2. You'll just have to, it creates a horizontal scroll, you see, of all the headers, and the header is fixed. But this is only because the text inside the rows is smaller or shorter than the text inside the column header. All right, let's close this out, and let's put virtualization true. So here, this is the last, oopsie. Okay. Let's look at this. First, let's look at the result. Okay, so here we have a similar thing where we have a horizontal scroll and we have a vertical scroll. So this is exactly the same thing right here, is exactly the same thing or very similar to front-end pagination with a vertical scroll to this, right? Instead of using pages, we're just using vertical scroll. What do I mean by this? This refers to this text. When you have over 1,000 rows, your browser will be slow if you don't use these two options, pagination or virtualization. Pagination or virtualization. Pagination means page size, you limit the number of rows per page. Virtualization is another way to make the browser faster if you have between 1,000 to 10,000 rows. And virtualization is virtualization true. It means that it doesn't load everything at once. I mean, to the browser, yes, but the user, if I had like 2,000 rows here, I would really scroll fast, and this wouldn't load at once. So it would take just a second or half of a second to load, and that is how it creates a faster browsing interface, because not everything is there at once, so it allows the user to see everything while they scroll down without slowing the browser. So definitely remember, if you have more than 1,000 rows but less than 10,000, use either virtualization true or pagination and the number 10 or 20 or 30 rows per page, and that won't slow it down. If you have under 1,000 rows, you don't need to use any of them. If you have over 10,000 rows, then make sure to use back-end pagination with the link that I gave you above right here. Okay, perfect. I think that was it. So today we went over the styling and the height of the Dash data table. If you're interested in seeing the other videos, just click above here on the Dash data table playlist, or just click on this link above here that talks about, that shows you how to, well, I show you how to create an interactive data table with a line chart and a pie chart all together as a web app. I hope you enjoy. I hope you play around with this, and have a good day. Thank you.